Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
As always, guys, we welcome you to subscribe to both channels, EEARTS and also on Evolutionary. Yesterday was one of those rare days where we took an actual complete day off from making a video.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't make any videos yesterday.
Whoa.
I mean, we did have clients that we dealt with, but we we almost always make videos every day.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sitting here in shock and disbelief because I swear I thought we made a video yesterday before people. But anyhow, your memory's far better than mine.
And she's younger than me by a decade. And guys, we do want to thank you for your support over on Patreon and on Ko-Fi, where you can do a one-time donation or monthly as well. And Ko-Fi is what we use for those that make appointments with us for energy work, for Vedic astrology charts, for spiritual coaching and the like. And again, here you just basically change the number of coffees to get the desired dollar amount. So, I was thinking, I have a video that we're going to just touch on a little bit of the economic situation and some of the earth change, what going on. But first, I wanted to go over just a little bit of an inspiration from Ken, who is the Aurea Apophysis. And Ken is he's one of the rare channels that I find that I listen to most of his videos, and that's not the case for pretty much anybody else. And it's not that I think in total agreement with him, because we don't, but there's a lot that we do have in common. But I just find it interesting because he feels like somebody that has kind of recently woken up to what's going on in the bigger scheme of things. And I'm kind of enjoying him waking up and sharing, just like with Doug and Stacy, for instance.
Yes.
Like Doug woke up, and Doug is in that holy crap guys mode. Do you know what's going on? And it's like, yeah, I've known all my life. But, again, for every person, it's a unique thing. And there's like levels to it. And it's so fun, really, to see somebody wake up and then, like, geez, because he talks about a lot of philosophy and metaphysics and things along those lines. But now, like this video, how to home and farm for $30K or less. He is not a wealthy man. And in fact, he paid the same amount for his property that we did for this one, albeit this was a kind of a temporary situation that we realized was going to be a temporary situation for us. And so, we will either be renting this place out or selling this place as we look for something that's more out in the woods to get that peace of mind. As we go through this, you're going to find that more and more people are going to be more and more sensitive to energies. This is the great separation. And, as you grow your energy body, you're going to find, if you are really rapidly accelerating in spiritual growth, your pineal gland is being activated and the like, because again, this is all being triggered from the sun. You're going to find you're just not going to be able to tolerate the energies of a big city. So here he's talking about how to get a house and farm on it for $30K or less. And good ideas. He's a very intelligent man. That we will give him. He's a very, very intelligent man. And there are good ideas. And so he's in Kentucky. So he was saying, because he is like us, I look at properties every day. I've looked at properties every day for decades, going back to 1990s, I would say. And so I do look all around the country at certain times, focused on some areas more than others. And, the next state that I live in will be my 10th permanent home state, or semi-permanent, as really, I have moved 40 times. This will be my 40th move in my life. So yes, I am a complete gypsy.
Mm-hmm. But, life has a way of slowing you down a little bit, and eventually you have to get good and grounded and super healthy so that when you do want to go on another trip, you can, and you can actually enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we do recognize the need for a good solid home base through what's coming up, because we're going to go through a period of years where we are, if we are going to want to stay free and clear of the system, we have to be totally independent from the system. In other words, you got to be prepared to not be able to, have bank accounts even. Bank accounts, and which, there's high probability within the next 12 to 18 months that we might all face a time when we can't get to withdraw whatever we have in a bank. I think that day is coming. It's probably not very far away. So again, this is part of the bigger picture that we really need to be thinking of. So he was saying that Kentucky is the cheapest state, and really that's one of the states I have not looked at. As for me, I've always kind of focused more on the South, and then when we were out west, the West, I have looked at, say, Idaho, because, Cindy does have family up there, and that's where she grew up, and she would love to live back there. But when you look at the cost of Idaho and then the challenges, for anybody that's out in Idaho, it's beautiful, gorgeous. It is, not as cheap as some places in the South or in the Midwest, or in, say, going a little bit farther over into some other areas. Every area has its challenges, and we don't know what they're going to do as far as turning on the water or turning off the water, because they do that all the time. But just to give you a for instance, this house is pending. This is in a town called Denniston, Kentucky. Now, I have not researched this area. Again, there's many areas that I know inside and out. But $59,500 for 20 acres of land and a roof over your head. Yeah, I understand, many of the people that are watching, they might live in something and they might say, I would never buy that house. Well, of course, we all have different situations. We've all gotten used to certain lifestyles and all, but just showing for those people that are, say, renters, and maybe you're a renter in California, where you are paying, I don't know, what would you pay for rent in California? I don't know, couple grand, $3,000, it's probably crazy. Your payment on your mortgage here is estimated at $349 a month, and of course there's tax benefits for that. $349 a month is pretty cheap living, is it not? For 20 acres, you could farm all day and all night with this. And this was just one example that I just quickly picked up on, because there's a ton out there that's really cheap. 49,911 acres. This one's 59,000, 5.3 acres. There's a 25-acre lot for $50K. That's, a little farmhouse here, 1 bed, 1 bath, 6 acres, 50,000. So again, your payment would probably be, if you just put down 10,000, and then when you're out in the woods like this, there are USD loans. I don't know how long that's going to be around. We don't know how long the US is going to be around. But at the same time, you can often get loans that are, out in the rural areas, almost zero money down. And, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be real cheap. It's going to be a lot cheaper average monthly. Now, of course, people will say, well, I got to work. Well, again, that every person has a different skill set. So, there is a lot we can do in this day and age as far as working from home. And, at paying off a $300 mortgage, it doesn't take a lot. I mean, shoot, you could probably live off a typical part-time salary and do that just to share. There's different ideas. So we've talked about the Hollar Homestead before. These guys were living in California. They sold everything they had. They bought an RV, travel trailer. And they went and explored. I think they hit 47 states out of the 50 states. They didn't hit Alaska or Hawaii. They missed one other state. I don't know if it was Maine or one other state, but they hit 47 states because they wanted to really know, where do we want to live? And so they decided on North Carolina. And they're in between Charlotte and Asheville in North Carolina. They bought their house. Actually, they bought a property. I forget how much land it is. I think it's around about 20 acres. That had 2 houses on it, but both houses were quote unquote condemned and could not be sold as a house. So they bought it as land only. And then even though the one house, which was a single wide, was, not salvageable, you could see the interior of it now. I mean, Ben did a great job. He totally fixed it up, gutted it, and put all new sheetrock in, beefed up the structure. And it is their house, and it's nice. And they got 4 boys and a daughter. They got 5 kids in this single wide. But they're on 20 acres. They're totally self-sufficient. And the biggest thing is they pay cash. They paid cash for this place. They have no monthly payments like that. And, again, they have the other house that they use as kind of storage, for everything involving the tools, et cetera, et cetera. As you can see, they have greenhouses up. They've planted tons of trees. They've done an amazing, amazing job. And, again, these houses were, quote unquote, not salvageable, not worth anything. That's a beautiful kitchen they got there. He did it totally from scratch. Now, everybody has a different technical ability as well. This is Chance's home world, and I was searching for Amish tiny homes because there is such a thing. And we know the Amish are great with construction. They're fabulous with their skill set. And this is kind of how we're going to have to live if we're going to escape the monster of this NWO. And we're going to have to go back to an older way of living, a more traditional way of living, totally sufficient, if we don't want to become part of the Borg. So, these are adorable. And so this video covers you, set up to finish. Now, what we're living in right now is probably not much bigger than this. And it's certainly not nicer. Look at the wood. I love exposed wood. Look at the cabinets.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of options out there. And when it comes to, are you going to be able to pay cash for something? Not a lot of people are in that spot, but I wouldn't let that detour you, because there are other ways of getting a home, and then just pay it off quickly. There's different things you can do with the finances. So I wouldn't let those roadblocks just come up and say, no, you just can't do this. Creative things happen. When you start really stepping into your spiritual nature, it just seems like a lot of doors start to open up, especially when you're in alignment with things. So, be brave.
Completely gorgeous tiny homes you could drop on properties for, not too much money. Again, depends on the person. Now, this is Girl in the Woods. She's a survivalist too. And now she's, if I'm remembering right, I think she's up in Alaska. I know she's in a really cold area. I thought it was Alaska. And you can see this is a little A-frame that she did, start to finish. And, again, how much room do you need? Well, that depends on the person. When you're an outdoors person, then not so much. Of course, it depends on where you're living too. And, so she is a survivalist. Like, she actually competed in that series Alone, where they drop you off in the middle of the woods and with nothing, not even water. And you gotta, basically figure out a way to survive on your own. And people have on that show for 6 months at a time. Again, it depends on the person. But, a simple construction like this, which she did up really nicely, it could provide shelter depending on the person. It might be enough for you, it might not be. And then this is a home up in the Alaskan wilderness. And again, totally, made by the people that own it. Kirsten Dirksen, her channel is very inspirational. I used to watch it constantly. And she just goes out to people that have built these amazing places. This is, a home-built log cabin on their own. It's just amazing, really, what can be achieved. So I wanted to share that to get us thinking a little bit outside of the scope of, because here's your alternative, right? This is that city. This is at the WEF. This is that city that has been talked of in Saudi Arabia. And what they're doing here, this is from this year's WF meeting in Davos. Saudi Arabia is building a city in the desert, and as you can see here, they're calling it a revolution in civilization. As you see the typical urban sprawl, and then they give you their conceptualization. Now, I find this right off the bat from what we got from the star children, the Earth's future star children, and people were saying, wait a minute, you said they're in New York City, but they're not part of the collective. They're not in the, no, because again, there's going to be far fewer people on the planet in 2055 than there is now. It's not even going to be close. Again, the population might be 5% of what the current population is, 10%, something like that. So they're only going to need a portion of the city. And yet they're showing the plans here. They take it and they squish it and they build it up. And they're turning it into a wall. It's a mirrored wall. So as you see, organized in 3 dimensions, everything goes up. Everything you need is a 5-minute walk. Everything. You know, this is their perfect vision for the way the Anunnaki style of life for humans here. The draconian. As you see, you won't even see it because it's a mirror. It's all mirrored. And inside it goes straight up. Autonomous services, you don't own anything, of course. No. The controllers own everything. They own you. As you can see, bigger than the Empire State Building, bigger than the Eiffel Tower in height, 200 meters wide, 170 kilometers long. That jams in everybody. So the rest of the area is just nature. And I find it fascinating because what they're talking about now is, again, they're going to jam everybody into these small little areas and let everything go wild. And this is really, in some ways, I feel it's because they don't want any of the natural earth changes happening on the planet when they're actually here. So they want everything to be harmonious and smooth, no more poisoning the planet. Again, the planet is alive. So with all the toxins that are being released all the time, it's causing infections. It's giving Mother Earth fevers, and her body is responding by sending out the white blood cells to kill the infections, which gives us the storms, gives us the earthquakes, gives us the tornadoes and everything. So when they're going to be around and they can't stay here, what the Anunnaki have found is that, again, planets they could be controlled and habitated, but their lifespan decreases greatly when they're here. So this is why they bred with indigenous, or really what they did was, splice DNA and alter the indigenous beings with their own DNA, and created something that has a much shorter lifespan than their own lifespan, but that can tolerate the planet. So some have wondered, are they terraforming it for themselves? Well, again, they're going to be a lot more green now because they're getting close to the time when they are going to actually come. Not that they're going to permanently live amongst us. It'll be, again, just like, soldiers being deployed. Just think of that. U.S., I got a tour of duty. Oh, where's your tour of duty? It's on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Right. A whole lot of change moving forward, and they're talking about this, and there's going to be people that might not mind that. They might not mind having everything 5 minutes from them. They can go shopping, whatever, but it's not something I could do. I cannot be subdued that way. I cannot have things like done for me. Part of me is just silliness because I'm scared somebody might screw it up. So I like to do my own thing. I want to be the one out there on the farm fixing my own fences, things of that nature. But, farm life is a whole lot of work. But I can't think of anything more rewarding than having control over everything that goes in your body, things that go on around your home, and just the love that's involved with all the other creatures that are all over the farm. So, there's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of reward.
Absolutely. So coming back to here and now, we see gold-backed currencies to replace U.S. dollar in global south. The adoption of commodity-backed currencies by the global south could upend the dollar's dominance and level the playing field in international trade. Everything that we're seeing right now is really just stopgap. This is all stopgap, and really we just have this period of time. We have like 12 years here that they are in this intermediary phase. So what are they doing in this period right now? They're basically leveling the playing field. They're eliminating the problem of 333 million Americans and 400 plus million firearms in a particular area, because that's a messy problem. They don't have that problem in the UK. They don't have the problem in Canada. They don't have the problem in New Zealand or Australia, and many other places too. They don't have that problem in China. We actually have more firearms in private ownership in the U.S. Than China or Russia does in their militaries. So that is one thing, and that's why you go back to 2005. You had that Chinese high-ranking military officials say, you have to think of BIO, WAR. I wonder if AI can spell really well. Fair. That's the way that they would do their first strikes. They would wait for that to take hold, and then at some point in time they would come in. Of course, they're going to, again, use the whole draconian Anunnakian way of pitting us against ourselves. That's why it's the left-right paradigm. That's why there's just so much obvious. From the right perspective, looking at what the left is doing, it's more than obvious. You'd have to be blind not to see what's going on. And it's made to be that way because, again, they want us to fight ourselves in the country first. Again, get the problem to take care of the problem to the part where you could just go in and mop it up. This is exactly how they're looking at it. And so the BRICS nations are going to grow in power, but again, it's a temporary shift. It really is a very, very temporary shift when we look at the bigger picture. And, it's interesting, too, because I was reading articles about Russia and China military engaging and actively wargaming with South Africa, which I hadn't seen before. But this is all part of what's coming. And, of course, gold and silver, they're always going to be worth something because, again, silver can be used to combat viruses. It's antibacterial. It has a lot of health properties. So does gold. And gold is really great for life extension and consciousness itself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're both so extremely conductive, and people use those in their body for conductivity. And if you look at our bodies, we are very, very electric. And the more electric you can make yourself, the better your cells are going to trade information, the better the vibration's going to go. So, I mean, it is something that's curious, worth looking into to see, why do people even supplement with them? And I feel it goes all the way back to the controllers. I think the controllers know darn good and well why they're so good. I don't think they tell us all the secrets, though, but we know just enough information. Colloidal silver is absolutely amazing for infection, but we all have to do our own research. Everybody is very distinct and different. You might be taking something that colloidal silver doesn't go well with. So that's why you want to look into it a little bit further and not just go take it just because.
It just reminded me of a a question that somebody had said, and they said that if for instance, the Anunnaki are not what we think of as physical beings, and again, it's all relative to the vibration. So, if you're vibrating on, say, if we look at 4D and say it's what we would also call the astral realm, again, you're operating at a certain frequency. And there's lower to the higher, and then we go to 5, and it's kind of like musical notes. That's a good way of thinking it. Like on a piano, you have your middle C, for instance, and you will have a C to the left, you'll have a C to the right, and again, this is kind of how this plays out in the different densities. When the physical body dies, we shift, and maybe there's better ones than this, because really it's more like when we think about the Russian dolls. I've used this one before. When the physical body is gone, then we're operating out of the layer closest to it. So then our consciousness is going to be centered in the astral. And if you are around something, again, every object that we have, if you're able to see the energy around things, the etheric layer around things, like if you look up at trees against the sky and you let your eyes relax a little bit, and you'll start to see that there's an energy layer around the trees. Well, there's an energy layer around everything, even houses, even inanimate objects. So having gold next to you, it does affect the energy body as well.
Definitely. And also, when we're talking about traumas and talking about things that have happened to you, that also affects the energy body. And that's why that's something that can make energy work so effective, because we repair that energy around the place that's been hurt. And then ultimately that translates into your 3D body. It might take a little while for that to happen, but it's definitely worth having something completely healed than putting a Band-Aid over it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we have the mainstream media admitting we're facing the worst food crisis in modern history. And we understand this happened so quick, so fast, and to some, so out of the blue. I mean, you just think about it. Before we had the plague upon the land, we had a definite increase in natural disasters going on. It was ratcheting up. But it was when the plague upon the land happened that everything really just seems to accelerate it and kind of fall apart all around, So again, there was this timing, and it set off more than just the one thing. It set off all the rest of these things that we're now facing, and will continue to kind of face in some degree going forward. As we know, this is not going to just go away. And as this article says, people on the other side of the planet are dropping dead right now from starvation. Most people don't even realize that's happening. Well, it's because there's a lot of other ones dropping dead all around us, all day long. And that is something that's very disconcerting when it seems like everybody knows somebody that is not here, and they should be, according to the way things were. There's no real reason that you can give. I saw another executive died from a big media company, and this guy was 47, and somebody said, well, he looks a little obese. Yeah. I mean, still, people didn't drop at 47 constantly, not like they're doing now. Athletes, again, some people are in denial. They're just in denial, and they can't face what's going on. And I think many of those, unfortunately, made a decision that they regret. China now grows more corn than rice. Doesn't that seem weird? Doesn't that seem odd? And a lot of the corn is for their animals, again. And that's something we've been told, by the powers that be, is just so unproductive to utilize so much more grain to feed animals that then will give you less food than if you were to eat the grain itself. And if China's leading the way, why is China, doing this? Well, again, it's just a temporary stopgap, because we do know there's certain quotas, and there's quotas for the amount of gas that could be released by cows. And there are quotas, as we remember that guidestone that was over in Georgia that blew up, for the number of people. And there's more than just that one particular instance that keeps giving us these numbers of basically 500 million to 1 billion, thereabouts. That's really all that's needed. Again, all you got to do is go back to the Enuma Elish and go back to the Sumerian stories. They really clarify everything. Again, this is not the first time this has happened, as you see here. And also the other part that they don't mention this in this particular article is that China has more grain stores than any other country, period. Now, be on the lookout for some more quakes. We have a 6.8, very deep, that hits northern Argentina. And this one, the depth was reported at 610 kilometers by the USGS and 586 kilometers by the EMSC. So being this deep, again, not going to do much on the surface. This is more like this could manifest as something that might be 7 or greater somewhere else along the lines of power transference, energy transference. There was a 6.2 quake that hit Guadalupe at an intermediate depth. And as you see this is in the Ring of Islands that goes down in the Caribbean. Beautiful area. When we look at this, these are the significant earthquakes the last 30 days. So this is the Caribbean one that we were talking about at 166 kilometers deep. There definitely has to be some connection between this and this. As you could see, the Caribbean plate right here is a relatively small plate. And then we have down here South America, and this is the one that we were just talking about, the 6.8, 610.7 kilometers deep. Now, transference, we'll have to see, because, again, there's technology in play. So even though things usually go a certain way, and maybe it would terminate somewhere down in the South Sandwich Islands, maybe it would transfer over this way into the Atlantic Ocean, or even maybe it would show up over in Africa somewhere. They are, in my mind, I keep feeling that they are trying to trigger the big one. They are trying to trigger the San Andreas and Cascadia. So, again, I always think in terms of what are they trying to do? What do I feel that they're trying to do?
Right. It is interesting. You were picking up that has something to do with the opposite direction. And those are the kind of abilities that you definitely want to pay attention to. You want to feel into things and watch them happen. And as things occur, kind of question your thought processes again. And that's a really good way to utilize your instincts and learn to use them, and then learn to trust them. Start small, so that things are fairly inconsequential if you get something wrong. But we do have to start exercising that muscle so that we know more about our surroundings and the conversation that they're having with us.
So when we look at Drought Monitor and we see that, there's most definitely an easing of drought conditions. This is the most recent one released, and you see again there's none of that darkest red. There's not even really red anywhere in California. Hey, look at that. Isn't that amazing? But we do still have some pockets of a pretty severe drought out there, and there's a long way to go. And then again, it's like they could turn it on like a water faucet, basically. Turn it on, turn it off. Barrage of storms leads Europe to smashing all-time hail records. Yeah, and hail could be very, very destructive. We have China suffering negative 50 Celsius, negative 58 Fahrenheit. First time in 54 years, Russian towns and cities enduring all-time record cold. I saw Yatutsk was actually 80 below Fahrenheit. Ooh, that is just brutal. And yet there was people walking around out there. I don't know how you could get used to that. Tibet avalanche, death toll hits 28 after drivers buried alive in deep snow. Let's send prayers to people over there in that area. As we have rare snowfall blankets, the Taklamakan Desert in China. This is over where the Uyghur province is, and we know about the Uyghurs. Let's send prayers over to those poor people who are getting re-educated in those camps. Heavy snow causes traffic disruptions in Spain. This is in northern Spain. Looks beautiful, can be deadly. And we have 3 dead, 2 missing in floods and landslides in Santa Catarina, Brazil. 6.8 inches of rain in 12 hours. You know, again, it's kind of a pick your poison. What do you feel like you are more suited to go up against? Drought, floods, avalanches, earthquakes, you know, record cold, record heat. Heavy rains cause flooding on rivers in northern Hungary. You know, again, it gets me thinking about, you know, the Bible and, you know, that series of judgments that comes down from above and all the plagues and the pestilence, etc., and all the gaslighting that goes on, you know, telling mankind, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. No, we're just trying to survive. Meteor fireball over Washington State on January 17th. Quite a few fireballs. There's one over Valencia, Spain as well. I'll give you guys the link so you could see them. And this one was seen over Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Texas. Big and bright. Maybe somebody was hitting warp speed over there. How about these guys? They're eating at warp speed.
And this is just absolutely my favorite part, when you get to see Mother Nature at work doing her thing. You know, those bunnies are so cute, and you look at the flowers and that just makes them extra cute. And just for more cuteness on top, the way they chew so super fast, it's just adorable. So they're making the best out of their situation at any given time, and we can do it too.
Absolutely. You know, so the best recommendation would be getting closer to the mother, you know, getting closer to the earth, getting closer to nature, feeling into it, and listening to what she is telling you. Again, so much of us has been cut off from this. And, you know, we could go back and look at the matriarchal civilizations and cultures that have existed on the planet at periods of time in which there was much, much greater peace than the patriarchal. And again, it's part of the cycle of the yugas that we find ourselves in. So time for change is here. As always, guys, again, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.